Hello everyone. Today we are going to do the next chapter from our book Moments, that is The Last Leaf. The Last Leaf is the story which is based on the theme that life is really valuable. Faith and hope should never be lost. We come across many hindrances in life and they should be overcome by fighting back in high spirits. Depression can lead to disaster even when the situation is not bad. Very often, we find people having a negative attitude towards life. They lose interest in life, and this causes suffering to the people surrounding them. They are even ready to lose their life as life has lost all meaning for them. The story tells the need to have a positive attitude towards life so that we can make it as fruitful as possible. Sacrificing a life for the sake of others is also a theme in the story. Painter Behrman sacrifices his life for Johnsy. Let's know about the author now. This is the story which is written by William Sidney Potter. William Sidney Potter, born on September 11, 1862. He was better known by his pen name O. Henry, was an American short story writer. Potter was born in Greensboro, North Carolina, and later he moved to Texas in 1882. Let's know more about the characters of the chapter. First of all, we will discuss about Chauncey. Chauncey was a young artist who lived with her friend Sue. She fell ill very seriously and had pneumonia. She had the fancy idea that she would die once the last leaf on the ivy creeper outside her window would fall down. The leaves were falling down very fast as the weather was stormy. Only one leaf remained. She felt that the last leaf will fall in the night and she would die. But Behrman went out in the cold night and painted a leaf on the wall. Johnsy saw this leaf the next morning and got back her will to live. But her foolish attitudes lead to the death of Behrman. She was a weak-hearted woman. And then comes Sue. Sue was a young artist who lived with Johnsy. She tried her best to feel Johnsy better and help him to get over her illness. But Johnsy would not listen to her. She was adamant. Sue sought the help of Behrman to solve the issue. Behrman solved the problem by painting a leaf on the wall. So we find that Sue is a true friend of Chauncey. And lastly comes Behrman, an old and somewhat very dedicated artist who lives downstairs from Sue and Chauncey. He has been painting for 4 decades without any commercial success, but still hopes to paint what he calls his masterpiece. He is an alcoholic and earns money by posing as a model for artists in the neighborhood. Despite his gruff exterior, he has a soft spot for Sue and Johnsy. He is initially dismissive of the idea that leaves on a vine could have anything to do with Johnsy's health, but ultimately goes outside on a cold and rainy night to paint a realistic looking leaf onto the wall outside her window so that she will think one last leaf has miraculously survived the storm. As a result of this sacrifice, he catches pneumonia and dies. But Sue remarks that he had finally painted his masterpiece. Now I'll explain the summary in detail. Sue and Johnsy were two young artists. They shared a small flat on the third story of an old house. Johnsy was taken ill in November. She had pneumonia. She lay in bed all day long. She kept looking out of the window at the ivy creeper on the opposite wall. Sue sent for the doctor. A few days passed, but Johnsy showed no improvement. One day, the doctor asked Sue if something was worrying the patient. He noticed that Johnsy had, as it were, made up her mind not to get well. Medicines won't be effective unless the patient wanted to live. Sue tried her best to make her friend take interest in clothes and fashions. She brought her drawing board also into Johnson's room and started painting. She whistled to divert Johnson's mind off her illness. Suddenly, Sue heard Johnson counting backwards. Looking out of the window, she was counting 12, 11, 13, 9, 10, etc. Sue, for the first time, noticed that her friend was counting the leaves left on the old ivy creeper. In the strong wind, the leaves were falling one by one. 3 days ago, there were almost 100 leaves. The number had reduced to 5. Sue tried to explain that it was autumn and the leaves would turn pale and fall. But Chauncey declared with finality that she would die when the last leaf fell. She called all the nonsense. She called all that nonsense. After all, the old ivy leaves had no relationship with Chauncey's life. She offered Chauncey a bowl of soup, but she refused to sip it. She sat on Chauncey's bed and kissed her. She requested her friend not to look out of the window and try to sleep. Sue needed a model to complete her painting. Old Behrman, who lived on the ground floor, suited her requirement. He was a 60-year-old painter. He was an utter failure as a painter, but he was still hopeful of painting a masterpiece. It was his life's dream. Sue told him how Johnsy had taken into her head that she would die with the falling of the last ivy leaf. Moreover, she was running a high fever and refused to eat or drink. Behrman went up to Johnsy's room. He saw the last leaf on the creeper. It would fall any minute now in the rain and wind. He spoke not a word and went back to his room. Johnsy woke up next morning. She exclaimed with surprise to see the last one leaf hung on the creeper. It looked quite green and healthy. After every hour or so, she looked out and found the last leaf still there. In the evening, there was another storm, and still the leaf didn't fall. The example of the last leaf gave her the strength to live. She told Sue how wicked she had been to want to die. She drank soup, combed her hair, and smiled. In the afternoon, the doctor examined Johnsy and declared that she was out of danger because she had now got the will to live. He then told about the critical condition of Behrman. The old fellow was suffering from pneumonia and there was no hope for him. The next morning, Sue told Johnsy about the death of Behrman. He had been out all night when the storm blew. The watchman had found his clothes and shoes wet. A ladder, a lantern, some brushes, and green and yellow paints were also found. Truly speaking, the last leaf on the opposite wall had been painted by the old man. It was his masterpiece. He painted it the night the last leaf fell. Now we will discuss about the title of the chapter. The title Last Leaf raises the curiosity of the reader regarding a happening or an event towards some kind of end. The word last reflects the main idea of the story, which is the last breath of Chauncey. The last leaf becomes the last hope of survival and keeps the reader hooked until the end. Throughout, the last ivy leaf remains the central point. In the early part of the story, it remains associated with Johnson's ailment and depression, while later on it conveys the message of courage, hope, and optimism. The last leaf saves Johnson's life and fulfills Behrman's lifelong dream to paint a masterpiece. However, it also turns out to be his last masterpiece too. Hence, the title is very apt. Now, what this story gives us? This story gives us a message, chief message, that the spirit of sacrifice we need to have in our life. The other message is that we should have a positive attitude in life. Johnsy was under depression and felt her life was linked to the leaves on the ivy creeper. This prevented her from getting better from her illness. She was also causing harm to her friend Sue. Had she adopted a positive attitude, Behrman would not have died. Thinking and attitude affect the lives of other people too. I hope you have understood this chapter well. Thanks for watching.